You made the observation that politicians don't find it expedient to talk about the issue. They don't have the moral courage to stand up for it. There are not too many advocates out there. I do know of Children's Defense Fund and Mary Wright Edelman, having worked for them, who talk about the cradle to grave prison pipeline. My question is one of who then? I know that in terms of clergy, which I'm one, this whole notion of prosperity gospel leaves us with occupied pulpits but empty theology, and there's no moral voice talking about this issue. I was appalled. I'm jealous, actually, while studying at the University of Chicago with Professor Don Browning, when it was students from the medical school at Northwestern who took up the issue of the DNA evidence. Let's get these folk out of prison. But I'm wondering who are the most likely, advocates, even as I look at some folk who get through the cracks, some of your athletes. With education being a common denominator, knowing that these athletes sometimes are passed through, as evidenced by Kimber Walker in Connecticut, who's about to graduate, who confessed that it's his first time recently he read a book in its entirety. But he's going to get a degree from the University of Connecticut. So you have these athletes who are perhaps, would be in that same little group as those who did not finish, high school, but they were passed through for the purpose of playing a sport. But who will be the voices? If journalists did it with, student journalists did it with DNA evidence in Illinois, are there any group of economists like yourself, perhaps, or someone who can raise this to the level of a public concern?
But there are probably plenty of groups, but I guess you mean what group will be listened to? That's what group would have the courage to
Excuse me.
No,
I was just saying, I'm going to ask you, what about the Legal Academy? In the last month, I've been at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, and I've been at the Yale Law School speaking to students about these issues. And what I've said to them is, these are citadels of learning and of power, okay? You people are going to go out from here, you're going to be district attorneys, you're going to be federal judges, you're going to make a ton of money, some of you, okay? And it's all a part of the law. Okay? Now, what do you have to say about what the law has wrought? Okay? To what extent are your intellectual energies being applied to a critical examination of the system into which you are about to make your living? It's a little bit like asking doctors to think about the ethics of healthcare, okay? Now, I'm not saying you got to agree with me. You probably won't, but don't you have a responsibility to not just ring the cash register, but also to think about what it is that you're about? Because this is power. In other words, this is the state. I'm not going to give a sermon, Pastor. A little sermonette.
No, but you're wrong.
No. The state has a monopoly on the legitimate use of force. Don't think that this is not violence. Okay, this is violence. Now, it's, if you like, righteous violence. The police come, they lock up the bad person, they're led away, they don't go willingly, they're forced to go, they're forced to stay in the cell, they don't stay, they're guarded, they're watched, This is violence, okay? So this is organized state violence on behalf of the people. If it gets off the rails, if it gets out of hand, if it becomes too expansive, if it becomes indifferent to human suffering, if it loses its way, who but the custodians of the law are responsible to right the ship? Okay? So if it's going to remain legitimate, because there's a whole other issue here, because there are communities where the perception of the legitimacy of the institutions of governance are being eroded and undermined by the wholesale character of the application of public force. Okay?
Yeah.
Every third kid is going to prison. Well, I know every third kid is not a bad kid. I grew up on the block. That's Johnny. He used to play with my kid. He's not a bad kid. He just went the wrong way. He just made a mistake. He just whatever. But they can't all be bad. You're telling me they're all bad and you should just throw them on the dung heap of human debris and forget about them? No. A government that does that is not a government that deserves my allegiance. Believe me, this thought has occurred to more than one person.
I agree. It's something that the Legal Academy can and should take up. I agree.
But it's a very good point that he makes, that it was student journalists at Medill who
like turned the whole DNA evidence,
Yeah.
challenge against the death penalty on its head, and who would have thought that little constituency would be the one to do it? And so
Maybe there's
the
a
law is kind of an obvious place,
journalist
but maybe there's
role here too. Students,
Let me say one more thing,
Yeah.
David. Late night cable television, MSNBC or whatever it is, okay? Tour through the Supermax, Pelican Bay, In other words, we as a culture are consuming this stuff.
Yeah.
You can find reality TV
Yeah.
programs that are
It's true.
all not journalistic exposés of the horrible conditions inside American prisons or whatever it might be, sentencing juvenile offenders to life without the possibility of parole, only advanced state in the world that executes at the scale that we do, blah, blah, blah. Not only that, but you turn on the television and what it's about is, ooh, can you believe how bad it is? Let me titillate you with an inside view about whatever. So, that's all of us here.
Prurience.
To a certain degree. That prurience and that's not just a few people in law schools. That's all of us.
Yeah. We're a little over time, so I have to respect the schedule. But I do want to, I feel just kind of powerful conversation. Thank you, Justice Leah Sears. Thank you, Professor Glenn Lowry.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for being a part of this. Please stay as long as you want with more wine and chips or whatever it is, and talk amongst yourselves and continue. But the formal part of the evening is over, and thank you again, and let's give our guests a